right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Today's Weather Tonight. Here, as always, I am your comedian / meteorologist for the evening, your meteorologist, Cloud Hudson. And I will be bringing you all of tonight's top weather stories. Top weather stories tonight are that the sun's been going crazy. We're at solar maximum and it is not done peaking yet, contrary to what popular belief was. People were starting to say that maybe the sun had slowed down and was starting to maybe we already passed solar maximum. But no, we are still like right in the middle of the peak oscillation of solar maximum, I think. And we've also had a solar storm going on in addition to a proton storm going on. On Earth, terrestrial atmospheric weather has had some tornadoes in Texas and a severe weather outbreak in the Gulf states and deep south, as well as a lot of precipitation in the Pacific Northwest. And we're gearing up to get all that precipitation moving through the east coast of the United States. We've had earthquakes. Let's see. We've had a continuation of deep earthquakes spreading throughout where they can go throughout the world. We've seen continued earthquakes on the Mid-Atlantic Ridge and in the a spreading of the surface quakes in the 5 range, in addition to continued earthquakes in the East African Rift zone. And what else? Who else sticks out? 6.0 over in the Western Pacific, a surface 6 that was really close to an island. Which one? We'll look at it when we get to the earthquake updates. This was, right off of Port Vila in Vanuatu Islands. And that was on the 21st, though. So we already talked about it on this show. Let me go back to, past 3 days. Seeing some spreading through Australia, the entire Ring of Fire area. And when we are looking at our volcanoes, let's go ahead and talk about our volcanoes. Let me just go into there instead of summarizing first. The next massive volcano eruption could cause climate chaos, and we are unprepared. This is a nice article, a nice unsettling article about how volcanic eruptions that could be cataclysmic are not only disastrous because of the volcanic actual eruption, like coming into contact with the pyroclastic flow or the volcanic ash or any of the lava, but there is also the risk that these giant volcanic eruptions will inject volcanic ash into the stratosphere and troposphere so deeply and thickly that it will mess with international airline travel, potentially causing communications delays. There are all kinds of things that we haven't had super volcanoes erupt. Some super volcanoes haven't erupted in the time that we've had our current types of technology. And so that could be really disruptive if it happens now. There are lots of different risks associated with volcanic eruptions. Climate scientists are looking into them now. Before we go into that part, let me just talk about volcanoes right now. We're at 39 actively erupting volcanoes. Let's see who got added to the list. Shivaluk and the Kamchatka Peninsula. Let's see. The Kamchatka Volcanic Eruption Response Team reported that lava extrusion may have continued at Shivaluk's 300 years of RAS dome on the southwest flank of Old Shivaluk and the dome at Young Shivaluk during the 5th through 12th of December. So that was also confirmed later. Thermal anomalies were reported all over both domes. So maybe Kamchatka is that new one. Looks like. Let's go to the list of currently actively erupting volcanoes. Violent fountaining stopped. Oh, right. And Kilauea. Sorry. How could I forget that over in Hawaii, we had some actual eruption activity. God, there's just so much to go through. Kilauea. Vigorous lava fountaining from vents in the southwest corner of the Halemaumau crater abruptly ceased within a few minutes just before 11 a.m. local time. Around the same time, the lava began draining back into the vent as summit tilt meters recorded a shift from deflation to inflation. Seismic tremors also significantly decreased during this period. This pattern resembled the pause that occurred on the 23rd of December between 3 and 4 p.m., the first eruptive episode. So, on the 23rd, we saw this happen and then subside. Then we also saw this happen today. So 2 separate eruptive events in Kilauea's Halemaumau crater. Historically, summit eruptions have spanned days to weeks, and there's a strong likelihood that this eruption will resume if summit repressurization occurs in the coming days. So that is the one that is back on our radar as currently erupting. Ahi and the Mariana Islands, dumbly labeled as the United States, the stupid, shouldn't be. No plumes of discolored water surrounding the seamount were identified in satellite imagery. Threat level looks at yellow, second lowest on a 4-color scale. Great Sitkin in the United States, so-called Aleutian Islands. So-called United States in the Aleutian Island chain. Slow lava effusion continued to feed a thick lava flow in Great Sitkin summit crater. Cool. So Alaska and Hawaii getting their eruptions in. Man, look at all these reports of volcanoes. There are lots of volcanoes. There's 39 volcanoes currently erupting. This is the Hawaiian volcanic eruption going on there. Let's look at our headlines. We've got Hurricane Milton, massive impacts on Florida landscapes. There's a nice photo essay here. We forget to talk about Milton a lot because, we didn't talk about Milton on this podcast because I didn't have internet due to Helene during the time that Milton formed and hit Florida. I remember monitoring Milton from afar, just like desperately looking and listening and getting text messages out to people who lived in places that had internet, asking them to give me updates on Milton. I had, my parents evacuated Asheville and went somewhere else with internet, and I sent them with a list of forecast reports I wanted them to pull from my favorite weather websites, and they did a great job getting what I asked for. And I was only monitoring Milton from afar that way, so I didn't get to talk about Milton very much, but it was a significant like high category storm that made landfall in Florida and Tampa Bay specifically. First one to make landfall in Tampa Bay in like, I think, a century. Even though Florida gets hurricanes a lot, it's rare that the landfall is right there. So this is some pretty significant damage. It's not as catastrophic as, you know, it wasn't as proportionally catastrophic as Helene, where Helene is very out of the ordinary for the region it impacted, and Florida didn't really get as much damage from Helene. Milton was tragic here. You can see a whole roof blown off, but it wasn't as unfamiliar for the area. I guess people in Tampa Bay would feel like it is, but yeah, I mean, it's still not nothing. Look at all those trees uprooted from root ball failure, which is something that happens in hurricane type damage. That's from the combination of deep soaking rains and lots of strong winds sustained over a long period of time. So yeah, that is just terrible. When Milton hit, all the relief, not all the relief workers, but a lot of first responders that go to national disaster, natural disaster areas moved from my area to Florida to clean up after Milton. But yeah, it was kind of crazy to even be worried about this. I'm glad that people survived and were okay, but not everything was okay. It was obviously, I mean, just look at that. Huge live oaks, sea oaks, and trees that have been there looking like hundreds of years toppled over. Boats, vertical, capsized, just really scary stuff. So that's the roundup of Milton imagery. Heavy rain headed for North Carolina. We'll get into this in the atmospheric weather section, but this is our precipitation 48-hour QPF for day 1 to 2. Outlook from the Weather Prediction Center. This has changed just a little bit, and we'll get to that on the pivotal weather. But it looks like all that heavy rain that is currently hitting Texas, Louisiana area and produced that pair of tornadoes today is coming for us in the southeast. Sinkhole opens on I-80 in New Jersey. So there's now a sinkhole in New Jersey. Parts of Interstate 80 were closed after a sinkhole opened up on the shoulder. And you can see some snow on the ground over here. So there was definitely some moisture soaking into the ground that contributed to this in some way. Quite interesting. Big issue because that is a major thoroughfare. I think sinkholes are fascinating because they are one of the harder phenomena to predict, though they only happen in areas that are, in hindsight, obvious why they happened. Once we know how they happened, that sounds dumb. Once we know the reason, it's obvious what the reason was, but there's often culvert failures or redirection of streams or bodies of water. There's groundwater movement, the movement of the table, erosion of a subterranean aquifer or perched aquifer, like some sort of different body of water, subterranean, like under the ground, is moving around and subtly eroding things. We'll have to wait and see what the cause of this sinkhole is, but I think they are one of the more fascinating natural disasters that can happen. Just the earth opening out from underneath you. Drone damage. In addition, there's also rough surf, which is kind of the opposite of sinkholes, and that sinkholes seem like all of a sudden something happening where nothing happens. This is kind of like that. You never see the thing that's eroding the sinkhole until it's all done. But this pier, you could see it slowly getting less and less structurally sound. This pier that collapsed in Santa Cruz due to rough surf hammering the region. You could see that it was already under inspection for its structural integrity, and that's why there were 3 inspectors on the pier when it did actually fail. That's not a detail in this article of it, but that is a detail I read somewhere else, that this Santa Cruz pier experienced complete failure in these regions of it. You can see different quadrants are already sectioned off, like you can't go any further. So obviously they know now that some of this is not structurally sound. Engineers and evaluators, state regulators, designers are having to go in and decide, how much more rough surf can the rest of the pier that is still standing withstand. Will they have to completely tear this down? Will it be more dangerous to tear it down than to somehow shore it up? Those are questions that have not been answered yet. But all the rough seas, rough surf out there is really contributing to this. Let's go take a look at our earthquakes. My hair looks really square right now. Why does it look so square? It's like, I don't even, got like weird bangs going on. Got a weird bangs situation. I need to get a haircut by someone that's not me. I need to get my haircut very badly. Okay. Let's see. Earthquakes. We talked about out here on the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. We've got the 5.8 and, that is recent. When I first started, this was a 5.9 on the 27th. And this 5.8 is also in the 27th. Okay, so one right after the other. One at 10 kilometers depth and one at the surface. Then we had a 5.0 here in Colombia, right on, that's not quite on the river. There was a 5.7, a surface 5.7 on the 23rd, just south of Guantanamo Bay in Cuba. I don't know what you want to make of that. We've talked about that location before. That is an area that's gotten, actually, we might have talked about this exact earthquake on my last show because I was on the 22nd. 4.6 out here in Nicaragua, Costa Rica coast region. That's between the Pacific Ocean and Lake Nicaragua. Then we had 4.6, 5.8, and 4.2. The 5.8 was at the surface. The 4.6 and 4.2 were at 188 and 241 kilometers depth, respectively. Then we got just a couple earthquakes out here at the actively erupting Hawaiian volcano area. We've got many small earthquakes just rumbling through Canada and California. Let's take these magnitudes back up. What is this big in? What's the big surface one that showed? There was a surface one showing up. 3.5 out here on the Aleutian Island chain. We got a 4.5 and a 5.7 out here on the Mariana Islands. We got a 4.3 very recently at 606 kilometers depth near the peak of the Mariana Island chain, approaching Marianas Trench. The 4.7 up here was near Taiwan. We had a 5.2 and a 4.9 here in the Philippines, 4.6 over in Indonesia, as well as another 4.6 and 4.5. Then there was also a 4.6 out here near Vanuatu. Over here in the East African Rift area, the Great Rift Valley, we had a 4.9, 4.4, and 4.5 all today and yesterday. Those are pretty recent ones. And up here at the top of the world, we got one. Not much else. Let's go to talk about our weather. I wanted to just mainly talk about our weather today. So looking at lower level water vapor, we can see why there is a mesoscale precipitation discussion for flash flooding in this area. They're looking at 40 to 50 knot low level jet surging northward towards the mid-south, mixed level cape or of 1,000 to 1,500 joules per kilogram. Looking at 1.5 to 2.5 inches of rain per hour. 1.5 near the low level jet. Okay, so we see this in the lower level. There are tornado watches all throughout southwestern to central Louisiana. Earlier in the night, we had those watches over here in Texas. Let's see. Let me make sure that I can show you tornadoes. Oh, here's a good image of that Hawaiian eruption. Tornadoes today. Okay. I'll put this down in the corner. Tornadoes that we saw today were here near Houston. We had this one Thursday, 3:51 p.m. Report of damage at an RV park. Images of downed trees. That possibly was... not sure if those are possibly connected. Got a water spout over Lake Houston. The confirmed one definitely over here is report of damage in Southwest Harris from brief tornado. There was also a report over here, multiple reports and videos of tornado on the ground near El Campo. So you see this little stretch, and then this little stretch as you get close to Alexandria, that is the evening time tornadoes. Those have been confirmed tornado touchdowns. Yeah. So that is, it's December 27th, and we are having 8 tornadoes reported today, which is crazy. This is not tornado season. It's not never happened, but it's very unusual to see enough energy in the atmosphere in December to create tornadoes. But it's not impossible, and I'm sure it's happened before. Hello. Happy belated solstice. Hope you've been well. Please continue. My social battery's on 0 after being with the families the past several days. Holidays suck for introverts. Oh my gosh. I totally get it. Man, yeah, you're telling me. I haven't had the energy to do my broadcast the past few days because there's been so much social commitment and social energy I've had to spend on that stuff. Now I love my loved ones. It is just a marathon of seeing all your loved ones and being forced to be in the best mood possible. It's a lot. It's a lot. So I was not able to broadcast between the 22nd and the 27th because I didn't have the energy, and I'm not going to push myself to do something like that. I'm not going to give y'all a bad vibe because I feel like I have to produce some content. I don't have to produce content. I genuinely want to do this. So when I don't genuinely want to do this, I'm not going to do it. Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad you understand. I'm going to make the radar Omega bigger again now, though. Okay, let's continue to dive into this little cyclone that's happening that swept through Texas. I want to see if I can load 250 frames. Sometimes it doesn't like me. The computer doesn't like me when I load 250 frames, but I want to see the full development of this through Texas into where it is now. Look at that bloom from out here. And you see it forming, and just, I can see how that would have created some little tornadoes down there in Houston area. Lots of rainfall sweeping through this area as well. And you can see those really high moisture values as well. It's kind of giving me trouble, but you can see this thing blossom and really start to get its rotation going once there's that nice big connected plume of moisture. Once all those individual moisture points connect, then they start swirling in with the dry air. And that's what feeds this thing to really swirl up into a dangerous looking storm. Let's look at our mid-level water vapor. Mid-level looks really dry, so it looks like there has been a lot of surface moisture getting convected up into the upper levels, but the mid-levels remaining probably contributing to the instability. And instability is like air not being where air likes to be according to its temperature and pressure and humidity. So it wants to, we anthropomorphize the air parcel. It wants to move around vertically more and spin around more when there's a difference in the values of humidity, pressure, and heat. It's like part of the equation of state law. It's all trying to balance itself. This is just a bunch of math up in the sky trying to do its own homework. This is math problems trying to do themselves, and it's all evening out in one big, you can almost see two centers of circulation, like an echo eddy forming back here. Like it's shedding a vortex in the mid-level. Let's look at the upper level. Oh yeah, so really high moisture values in the upper levels. So that mid-level was very unstable because of it being that dry air sandwiched between moist air, and probably contributing to some friction between the upper and lower levels. That probably gave it some good, a hodograph from this area would have been really interesting to look at. Really cool to see the cold front pretty clearly defined, even up into the upper levels, and this warm front being perpendicular to the shape of the front. That really shows that the warm air is infecting like with where all this moisture is sourcing from, and the momentum of the direction of the storm comes from the cool arm sweeping in behind it. Really good example. And this upper level water vapor map really shows you satellite imagery, shows you how convective things were as it went over East Texas, and how we could possibly have not hurricanes, tornadoes happening. They happened around 3 p.m. Oh, I can't stop it at that time. Let's see, 7, 8, 9, getting through the middle of the day, then into the peak heating hours, which is when that's when we saw all the hurricanes, all the tornadoes. Gosh. And that's why we are still looking at Louisiana as a potential area of more tornado formation. Let's see. As this, you can see two different directions of air masses crossing there. There's that spin and heavy convection. You saw that boiling like a little, when you see a pot of water boiling, there's like a column of convection of parcels of water vapor moving upwards. That's what real strong, good convection looks like. Bad convection, good convection, all semantics about like, what do you think is good and bad? Let's go to our radar. And we can definitely see this on radar. Ooh, buddy, this is going to be some decent rain for all of this area. So this is going back to earlier today. No, this is back on 75 frames. Let's go to 250 frames. I want to see the Texas part. Yeah, look at that, buddy. 250 frames on this product doesn't get us as far back in the day as it does on the satellite product because there's more frames here. But still, I can see how those lots of isolated, torn up little shells would have jagged cells, those like shorn off little isolated cells of convection would have been very capable of producing tornadoes. We just got another special weather statement here for Natchez, Louisiana. Wind gusts of up to 50 miles per hour. High winds could bring down trees and large limbs. That is the same as over here in Vicksburg. There's also 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 counties under a tornado watch right now. That is primary threats include, this is until 2 a.m. Central Standard Time. few tornadoes and a couple intense tornadoes possible. Scattered damaging wind gusts up to 65 miles per hour. Isolated large hail events up to 1.5 inches in diameter possible. That is some strong updrafts. Damaging winds up to 60 to 65 miles per hour, and isolated hail may also occur. Yeah, so this means a tornado watch means all the ingredients are there to make a tornado. It's not that we necessarily see one forming right now. Let's see if the local radar site will show us anything. Okay. So I like to, when you're looking at a squall line like this, I'm going to turn off. I want to turn off those little thingies. How do I turn off storm outcome? Okay, I can't look at my settings right now. I forget what these little thingies are and how to turn them off. But it's like a little estimate of where that little air parcel is going to go. I like to look at this and see what the full shape of like the rotation of the Cheeto is doing. Like if this was one big crashing wave, if the convection here is like the sea foam formed from the crashing of a wave, which is the whole front movement, which way is the curl going? Is this spiraling cohesively? Does it look like it's doing like a double fisted twist, like a double helix kind of thing? Is it mostly one way or the other of rotation? I think my smoothing might be on a little too heavily too. There's not a very healthy rotation with it at this time. So I think we're pretty close to, I think they only have an hour left in this tornado watch, and it's probably going to dissipate. But it's still a storm strong enough to warrant tornado watches right now, which is very out of character for the season. Up here, this is looking a little nastier. We got a little bit higher reflectivity. I think that's where you can expect to see more of a hail threat. But really, overall, this storm is going to be moving up the Mississippi it's already in western Tennessee. That is going to continue to swirl around. The center of rotation is going to move through the deep south, like along not I-20, but more like between 40 and, which road is this? I-82? The one that goes like right. I-30. I was going to say 30, and I was like, there's not a 30. Yes, between 20 and 40 is 30. 40 is up here, 20 is down here. So I think the center of rotation is going to move along I-30 from west to east, and that is not the center of where the heaviest storms are. That's the center of the rotation of the storms. So this big comma shape, I don't know if you can see that this is a comma shape, like this comma shape. Like if this was a punctuation mark, this would be a comma. That's the good classic cyclone shape, mid-latitude cyclone shape. That's not like what you want to see, but it is if you are a sick little freak who loves thunderstorms, then that's what you want to see. There is some convection moving onshore here in South Carolina and North Carolina, they're getting some onshore flow that is turning into some precipitation there. So they're already going to be wet and drenched by the time this reaches there. We're also getting some connection in the upper levels to precipitation in the Great Lakes region. And over here in the west, the Pacific Northwest, we're looking at another cyclone coming in and bringing a lot of rainfall to the Bay Area right now, and also to Portland and just off the coast of Aberdeen. So let's see what that looked like for our precipitation totals today. 24-hour precipitation analysis shows us that over in the Pacific Northwest, they went into the 3 to 4 inches range, and in the Texas and Louisiana areas, they got easily an inch and up to 4 inches in some areas. Maybe the Northwest didn't get up to 4, but this area did. Then we did get a little bit, a smattering of showers throughout the coastal south and along the Ohio River Valley. Over the past 72 hours, even more of the country shows rainfall. And in the past week, we show even more areas of localized rainfall. Past 6 hours, it's only been this story in the deep south pretty much. Now our forecast. Our current hazards. All of this area, even if it's not currently getting rainfall, is super hydrated, very moisturized, very saturated, very dewy, wet look, kind of glossy skin type of, just really wet and moist. What I'm saying is there are dense fog advisories from Texas and Oklahoma into Minnesota and Wisconsin. There's also a winter weather advisory up there in parts of Green Bay, Wisconsin area. Wait, is that Green Bay? Am I lying? That's yeah, that is Green Bay. I don't know why I thought I was lying for a second. I'm glad you're back on YouTube. I haven't seen your screen name in a while, and so I've missed you. Welcome back. Let's see. Idaho, definitely getting in on the winter weather action. Let me see the winter weather product here. Yeah, if we look back at the radar, Idaho is definitely getting in on the winter weather action. You can see it. You see it more down here in Oregon and Nevada, but up here in the upper elevations of Montana and Idaho, you're seeing some snowfall for sure. Not significant, huge amounts, but definitely some. And Colorado, of course, as always, doing well in the snow department. Yeah, decent performance out of those areas for as far as the snowfall goes. But mostly liquid water for all of the eastern parts of the United States. It's so called. What we allege to be the United States. United States, according to who? Okay. Let's go. Oh, I didn't make this small again. Let's see. What else did we want to look at on here? Where I looked at tornadoes. Oh, I just clicked out of that video of Kilauea. Oh, well. Over the coming days, we are going to see some rainfall moving through. Let's look at day 1, excessive rainfall moving through the deep south. Day 3, excessive rainfall risk does move into my area. So the southern Appalachian Mountains, eastern Tennessee, southeastern Kentucky, and western North Carolina, northern Georgia, northwestern upstate South Carolina, New York and South Carolina both have an upstate, colloquially. We're also looking at a slight risk. Those are moderate or marginal risks of excessive rainfall. We're looking at a day 3 slight risk of excessive rainfall over here in Northern California, Southern Oregon, coastal. Let's see. Winter storm severity index indicates some potential extreme severe winter storms in southeastern Idaho, and a lot of the mountain states. They're looking at some decent winter storms. In as far as this rainfall goes in the next 3 days for the deep south, it looks like this area between North Carolina and South Carolina, this like Cashiers to Coweta National Research Forest to like northeastern tip of Georgia, that Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina border region is where we're looking at that 4 inches possibility. So that is an area that is still dealing with Helene fallout. So we've been talking about it. Locals have been talking about how people need to be shoring up their current living situations to be able to withstand this oncoming rain, because it is not awesome to get 4 inches of rain in 3 days on top of an area that's already got a lot of exposed mudslide scars, flood damage, and like if you don't have a roof and you get 4 inches of rain, that's a lot of water to deal with. Even half an inch of rain over a tarped roof is a lot to deal with. 4 inches is going to be a monstrosity amount of rain. And then as we get into 120 hours, the totals just go up in the areas. So looking at a whole week of forecasted rain everywhere in the Northeast, and really the entire Appalachian region is going to get a good soaking. So we are getting nice and wet over here in the East Coast to match the West Coast, honestly, because the West Coast has been kind of getting all the fun when it comes to excessive rainfall lately. Okay, let's take it now to look at our Schumann resonances. And they've been pretty quiet considering all the solar activity that's been going on. Oh, I spoke too soon. The 26th, we did see a decent little hiccup. We had quiet conditions, as evidenced by the really high frequency. When the average frequency goes up, that means that we probably haven't had decent power transmissions in a while. And as you see, over the course of the day of the 26th, we had decent amount of power come in on that lower mode, which lowered the frequency. Now we're still sitting a lot higher than average, but this is a good indication that we are getting back into the swing of things with the Schumann resonances. And you can see, there was that spike on Christmas Day, got a little download there, and over all of the 26th we got a good little download, and then not too much on the 27th, although it's interesting that there was a mode 4 peak there. Let's go to our solar weather, because there's been a good amount of solar weather. Since I last talked to you, we've had like 40 coronal mass ejections. One of them here on Christmas Day was a type 2 partial halo. So that is potentially coming directly towards Earth. Today there was a strong M7.42 flare from region 3938. There was a M3, and yesterday there was earlier a, let's go to those flares. You see the overall graph of our flares does seem to be like peaking up. Maybe we are building up to another X-class flare. I think that is very possible. I think maybe sometime around the new year. Just guessing, just completely guessing there. On the 23rd, we did have an M9.0 solar flare with an Earth-directed CME. So that is what we are, that's what we're experiencing today. Likely early on Thursday, December 26th is when that 9.0 solar flare, yeah, wow, beautiful. There's a GIF from the one on the 23rd that went towards us. Let's see. Yeah, in the past few hours, we've only been in C-class territory, but usually I think there's usually peaking upwards of the maximum of, like, there's a trend in the maximums that they go up as you're looking for an X-class flare. So I do expect an X-class flare soon. Coronal holes. Ooh, decent coronal hole right there, giving probably some fast solar wind on the northern hemisphere side of things. Here we see region 3938. That's the one that just produced that most recent flare, and region 3932 down there looks decent as well. Those are both beta gamma delta type configurations. 3938 there. We don't have the best imagery of it right now because the SDO is out of commission, but yeah, 3932 has a lot of complexity there. Let's look at solar protons are still decently elevated. So we haven't had a storm level hit. We haven't reached the threshold for a proton radiation storm technically, but we have been sustaining a very high level of solar proton, lower energy solar protons streaming at us for like several days now. I think at least 5 or 6 days. So everybody take care of your body, your thyroid, your health, because extra protons, extra radiation isn't nothing for your body. We don't have great data on what it does mean yet, but I just intuitively have a feeling that our throat is affected by protons. That's just a complete gut instinct based on your thyroid absorbing iodine, which is irradiated the most quickly of the elements that we take in, radioactive fallout, blah, 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 blah. Okay, let's look at our planets. Oh, wait, I forgot to look at the storm level we hit today. What KP level do we get? Okay, so on the 24th, we had a KP index of 4, but we didn't really reach a solar storm level today, which is interesting. Oh, I never went to our magnetosphere either. Let's look at least one video of the magnetosphere. Let's see, did we get any, like, arrivals? Not really seeing much. Not seeing too big of a difference there. I'm going to go to our planets. Planetary weather. That's what I got to say about that. We have 2 T-squares in play. We have a T-square between Saturn, Mercury, and Jupiter. That's our mutable T-square that's in effect. And we have currently a T-square in fixed signs as well, with the moon debilitated, or the moon is in its fall in Scorpio at 23 degrees of Scorpio, square to Venus in Aquarius, and that as 22 degrees, square to Uranus retrograde in Taurus. So Venus, Moon, and Uranus. Moon and Uranus are in opposition. Venus is the fulcrum, the axis, the hinge point. I think the way that we need to move through electric change in our material world and navigate our emotions related to possession and want and control and power hinges on the ways that we can connect our greater sense of justice and values to the collective and the collective liberation. If you look at the changing world and the climate change, the changing state of politics, the changing state of affairs in general, as something personally happening to you that you're a victim of, then you're not going to feel very good about the way the world's going. But if you look at it as a reflection of a collective illness of imbalances of power that have been maligning our society for a long time, finally getting dragged to the surface so that they can be pulled out and purified and I want to say exhumed or exonerated, so we can get out the rot. This is digging deep in society to get out that material rotting. Don't take it personally that we have to go through some changes right now in order to make the world a better place. Don't take it personally that you have to lose some things right now in order to improve the world. It's just the way that change happens. Now, that T-square speaks to me because I'm a fixed sign dominant, and I love the fixed signs, especially the late, the 22 through 25 degrees of the fixed signs is where I have most of my planets. So I'm very keyed into the vibes there. This mutable T-square, though, I think really is the culmination of all the energies that we've been feeling throughout this entire Mercury-Jupiter opposition. Mercury is now separating from the opposition to Jupiter, and Saturn has been applying to this opposition or square with Jupiter for a while now. Ever since it started separating from its conjunction back when they were both in Capricorn. This has been building to this moment. So 2020 to 2024 has been building to this moment. And earlier this fall to now has been building to this moment. Earlier this fall is that Mercury-Jupiter opposition, and 2020 to now is that Saturn square Jupiter aspect. These things have been building. There's a great change in the way we do things, communicate things, record things, the ways that we know knowledge, epistemology, like the way we know what we know and how we know it, our values for educational systems, and also what opinions we value, what evidence we value, what input we take as real and factual and holding more weight than others. I'd say we are putting a little bit more weight on emotional and etheric and non-physical forms of knowing things. Just the gut vibes are getting evaluated more seriously now, and that is very deeply disturbing to some people. It is very comforting to some people who have felt out of place in the world for a long time under the era of Pluto and Capricorn. I just feel like the vibe check is now way more important than the fact check. And that isn't saying it should be. I'm saying based on the T-square between Saturn and Pisces, Mercury in Sagittarius, and Jupiter retrograde in Gemini, the vibe check is surpassing the fact check in social currency. Vibe check, social currency, fact check. Yeah, it's all adding up. Also, your social standing isn't going to continue to matter as much as your vibe. Like social standing based on previous dynamics of the way that social cliques and hierarchies worked before is going to matter less than what your actions are and whether there's a good vibe about your actions. Just like gut instinct of, can people tell if you're doing this for the right reasons or not? And is it harming people or not? Is going to start mattering more than who you know and X, Y, and Z reasons why this person can be trusted or not trusted. And that's for better or worse. Let's see. We've got Mars retrograde in Leo, moving into an even closer opposition with Pluto in Aquarius, and then it will move into the the Cancer phase of its retrograde. That's going to be an interesting time, but for now we are still dealing with a Leo Mars retrograde, so maybe the vanity, ego, performance, bombastic nature is in retreat because it is facing some powerful oppositions. Being the figurehead of things is not so attractive when people are taking down figureheads. Being the CEO isn't as great of an ego stroking now that you realize that nobody likes CEOs. The power of the collective is challenging the notion of personal pride wrapped up in prestige and ego-driven power pursuits. in a very martial way. Let's see, we finally got the nodes switched into Aries and Libra. So the North Node is in Aries, the South Node is in Libra. Let's, I'll do some more deep diving on that later. Okay. I think that's where I want to leave that part for now. Why is this camera so flashy? I don't know. It's having struggles with the white balance there. Not your part of the West Coast. Excised. That is the word I think I was looking for. Cut out and removed. Excised. An exorcism, if you will. Exorcised. Okay. Let's do a little vibe check. I said the vibe check was important. Okay. Let's see what the selenite charged affirmations deck has to say about what the vibes are. What's the vibe check? What is the weather of the energetic sphere beyond that which we can currently scientifically measure? What's coming in from outer space? What's coming up from inner space? Let's over-understand. I am life everlasting. I am an eternal being. It's got a little like outline of a person, looks like a ghost kind of in the middle of a field of flowers with a hill in the background and some puffy clouds and a blue sky. It says, "You cannot die, you are everlasting life. In grace, you may choose to relax and allow your gentle transition back into your non-physical state of pure positive energy. Your natural state is foreverness." Let that sink in. If you don't think that your natural state is foreverness, then maybe you don't understand who you are. Perhaps you need to reflect more upon what makes you, you, and what is of this world and what is of the eternal life stream. Now for my holographic tarot deck. How are you today, sweetie? Hope you're well. Well enough to give us a little sense of things from the cosmos right now. I know there is much strife and grief and anguish in the world, but let us not forget who we are and where we come from, where we return to. All right. Well, I'll give it one more just because these cards are like a little flimsy, and I like to bend them back. Okay. What is the energetic weather? That which is beyond the planets. The Page of Pentacles upright. So, Page of Pentacles upright. The beginning of a new monetary resource type relationship, the beginning of a new physical endeavor, but of the resources and values and connections in regards to your resources kind of way. Not necessarily who's going to give you money, but what kind of, if it's about relationships, then what relationships that you can count as an asset in your life. There's news in this regard. There's a new thing coming for you. Perhaps you're going to start a new business. Maybe you're finally going to make that LLC. Maybe you now have a new lease on life and are trying to take more ownership of your material resources and power when it comes to moving abundance through the world. Maybe you want to be more of a conduit, like I do. You want to be more of a conduit for abundance than someone who blocks and shames it the way that you've done before. Shore up your connections when it comes to the material world. Remember, he's standing in a field of blossoming flowers. Shore up your connections in the material natural world, the divinely intended expression of the material world, not the corruption part. Get back in touch with nature is always a good one. And follow nature's cycles. So waste not, want not is a natural cycle. Look for the areas where there's waste and see waste as a source. Look for places where there is lack and look for ways that you can recycle some waste into the places where there are lack. Anything that looks spare just hasn't found its vacuum to fill yet. So if you're sitting around feeling like there's too much stuff, find the need. And if you are sitting around with too much need, find the stuff where it's just sitting around, because all these connections need to be made. The earth does this in natural cycles very well. We are eternal beings. We are like water and energy. We are not created or destroyed. Well, water is created or destroyed. I digress on that one. Energy is neither created nor destroyed, simply converted from one form to another. And we should be doing that with our physical resources as well, whether that's money or objects that we possess or have control or access to, or connections we can make for other people. All of that can have its own cycle, like the water cycle, or like energy being converted from one form to another. That is where I look for Page of Pentacles. If matter is neither created nor destroyed, how can there be something new in the physical world? It's all about shifting the access to it. That's how we change. That's how we get access to new materials, or that's how we create new resources, is changing our access to physical materials that are already there. Okay. Let's listen to what the liminal space has to say with that. really like Page of Pentacles with that I am life everlasting, I am an eternal being card. It really gave me that inspiration to start talking about matter being neither created nor destroyed in the context of the Page of Pentacles. So yeah, it might be something as mundane as you're thinking of starting a new business, but it also could be something as really radical as finding a local food rescue and volunteering there, or rescuing food yourself, liberating your mind from the stigma of, not wanting to forage for your food or urban forage for your food. It's all there. Okay. Let's go to liminal space. What do you have to say with this? Ooh, there we go. Mama Aya. There we go. This is a long reading, so just soak in this card. It's got gorgeous, gorgeous imagery on here. Really love the way that these look like sound waves that are like the trees and bushes drawn down here look like peaks in a sound wave recording. These look like waves. The eye in the sky, crying tears. The mountains also looking like crepuscular rays of the setting sun. Really beautiful card. Really, really beautiful card. Okay. And the dedication for this one is also very beautiful. I read it. Try to keep it in focus while I read it. Okay. Regardless of how beneficial it is to heal, there is grief implicit in the process. We were born whole and must relive the brokenness we experience along the way in an attempt to return to a wholeness that will never truly be ours again. What we get instead is wisdom. There are no guardrails on this life. People fall off the edge all the time. And even if you don't fall, off the edge is where we all eventually end up. The only true certainty for all of us is that this life will end, and life cannot be stored up like currency. It will disappear the moment you attempt to hold it in your hands and examine it. It would stand to reason that this, whatever this is all we have. There's page 2. The earth gives us clues that she wants us to heal, as can be found in various plants, flowers, herbs, vines, and fungi. In times of need, these seemingly silent organic forms may interact with the human body, facilitating a heightened awareness of the self and a connection to an array of cosmic archetypes eager to show you a piece of their sky. In return for a glimpse into their truth, they ask you for your own, to count your shackles and locate the missing keys that unlock the path of your freedom, and by so doing, theirs as well. The raw edges of healing may be searing hot and razor sharp, but do not confuse the death of your wounds with the death of you. Beautiful. Beautiful. So, I hope that resonated with y'all. The beauty of the Earth's cycles is that every single movement from one stage of it to the next is a death and a rebirth. The death of a raindrop is the birth of groundwater. The death of a puddle is the birth of water vapor that will at some point become a cloud. And the death of a cloud is the birth of a raindrop. It all fits and is both very deserving of mourning and also very deserving of celebration. If we're starting something new with our Page of Pentacles card, there is going to be a death of something. There is going to be a loss of some sort of identity, of maybe your loss of identity of being poor. Maybe you're not going to be able to maybe you won't be able to identify as a victim anymore. Maybe you're not going to be a victim of circumstance, and that won't be an excuse identity that I hide behind. Perhaps there will be a rebirth of faith, and that will come at the cost of cynicism. Something gets transmuted into something else. You don't keep the toll that you pay at the bridge. It gets paid into something. And that complete transmutation cycle gets taught to you through plant medicine, but also through the medicine of the concept of plants. If you've ever done any kind of gardening, you know it. And with composting in a complete cycle, you know how it works. Yeah. I'm going to leave it there for tonight. I've been talking for like an hour and 21-ish minutes, and feels like quite enough out of me. I've got very shiny, very glittery eyelids right now. I don't know. You can't even see how glittery they are in real life. They're just very sparkly, and I've got to take all that off. So, I love you. Thanks for coming to another episode of Today's Weather Tonight. I've been Cloud Hudson. You've been yourself, I hope. I love you very much, and I will see you next time. Bye.